Ernest and I met because he was the spokesperson and quasi-leader for the Million Trucker March on Washington, D.C. about 2.5 years ago, where they pulled trucks in and shut down D.C. in an effort to try to get the attention of the administration that truckers were tired of the Constitution being walked over. And there was a video of one of the truckers that was on that on Facebook. I contacted him, interviewed him, and he connected me with Ernest. And so we've known each other now for over 3 years. First time we've been able to lay eyes on one another. And he asked me to read you this in his introduction. Our speaker today is the father of 5, grandfather of 7. He lists those as his 12 reasons for everything he does to restore our constitutional republic. His presentation is about our responsibility to preserve and pass on the liberty we inherited to our children and grandchildren. At the end of his presentation, there'll be a brief question and answer session. Please hold your questions until the end. He's the co-chairman and spokesperson for the Liberty Restoration Committee and is here to share with us the plan to restore our constitutional republic to its original intent. So, will you please welcome Ernest Lee. Ernest?
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. My pleasure. Thank you. Y'all are my guinea pigs. Okay. I'm a truck driver by profession, as Greg alluded to. So I'm a lot more comfortable behind the wheel going down the road. Truck drivers represent only 1% of the population, but you must realize we give you 100% of everything you have, everything you use, everything you need. So we're kind of important in our own little inflated way. So I'm here to remind you today that the power of the people is greater than the people in power. We seem to have forgotten that. So everybody knows that our federal government is completely out of control, outside the boundaries of the Constitution. We need to do something about that. So the Liberty Restoration Committee was formed to tackle this problem. How to do it, what to do. There's tens of millions of people across this country, a lot more awake than anybody gives us credit for being, and we're concerned, but we don't know what to do. Well, 20 minutes from now, you're going to have 3 tools available that some of the finest constitutional minds in the country have put together. I call them the constitutional gurus. So let me share with you, number one, why I believe in the Liberty Restoration Committee and in these tools. They are the right tools. If it's not too late, it's the right time to use them. But where does the power lie? Not with me making this presentation, but with your participation. So, I'll start describing these tools for you. And like I say, you are my guinea pigs, and y'all forgive me for turning my back or side to you. But protection of our rights, liberty, and freedom is the only reason why governments are even formed. Our government was created by the states as representatives of we the people. Keep that in mind, it's a very important point. It was supposed to secure our borders. You say, how well that's working? Provide for our common defense, make sure commerce flowed freely between the states. But the original intent of the federal government was for their focus to be outward, as a representative of the states in international matters. War, peace, treaties, trade agreements, and negotiations of those things. That was the original intent of our federal government. Well, how has the federal government failed in their responsibilities to we the people? Well, we really don't have enough time for the whole list, do we? But it has failed to secure our borders. Even worse, illegal aliens are encouraged to come here, given benefits, instead of being punished by laws that exist against that activity. This is happening while our American veteran heroes Their benefits are being cut. Their money is being cut. How we've allowed the federal government to treat our veterans should be our national shame. So, our elected representatives, they've indebted us over $19 trillion. Unfunded liabilities, $150 trillion plus. Those numbers are so big you can't even wrap your mind around them. So let me give you two examples. They represent more money than exists in every form of currency on the earth. Or it equates this way. This should make you feel comfortable. $350,000 for each and every one of you here, from ages birth to death. Responsible government, right? So, over 600 unconstitutional federal agencies have been unlawfully established. You say, wait a minute, how can they exist? Well, they used a legal method to create them, but they didn't have the authority to create them. So unelected bureaucrats are passing the regulations with the weight of the law. You're familiar with some of these groups. The BLM, the IRS, the EPA, have nothing to do with cleaning up the air, the water, or with managing land. It's about federal government control. Now, I need my first image, please. Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, drawing their just power from the consent of the governed." Pay close attention to this last line. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. Starting to get the drift? So you see, we have the right, but our responsibility is actually greater than that. We have the sovereign duty to fix this situation. So, the power in this republic, as I stated earlier, is the people, then the states, then the federal government. How is it that the federal government now sits on top of the power pyramid instead of the bottom of that food chain? Who's allowed it? We have. Okay, so, second slide, please. This is one of the three tools that will be provided for you. This is tool number one. The Declaration of Intent. Go ahead and advance this. I've got this one advanced. Go ahead and advance it all the way. This is action of the Liberty Restoration Committee, authority from we the people. There's the website where all this information is. thelibertypledge.com. That'll be important for you to remember. So this is a serious document, the Declaration of Intent. As a matter of fact, that quote from Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence I just read to you, or we read together, is part of this document. Best ideas are borrowed, right? We couldn't find any more powerful language. So let me give you, instead of taking the whole detail of the document for you, you can take it down now, John. Instead of giving you the whole detail of that, I'm going to kind of give you the drive-by version. The first part we call the indictment, just like you would charge somebody with a crime, because crimes have been committed against we the people. That's what Thomas Jefferson did. That's what we've done as well. The second part we call providing evidence of the crime, because it lists several of the ways, again not all, but several of the ways the federal government is guilty of crimes against the people. The third part of the document explains the title. It's what we, the people, intend to do. We call that the verdict. So you've got the indictment, the evidence, and the verdict rendered by we, the people. It's a serious document, not a limp-wristed petition. So we invite you to read it. If you agree with it, electronically sign it online. Just your name and your state. That's all that we ask for. No other personal information. So that's your first call to action, is to read this document. It's not that long. It shouldn't take you much time at all. A couple of questions for you. I want you to raise your hand if you object to the Constitution being messed with. You object to the Constitution being messed with. I agree with you. You're exactly the kind of people that we're looking for. Now, you realize you're too late, right?
No.
It's already been messed with. Yeah, it's already been messed with, and when you move past the Bill of Rights, it's been changed 17 times. Not always to the benefit of we the people. How about the 16th Amendment? I don't know, the IRS, income tax? Did that ring a bell? So, now, raise your hand if you've ever taken an oath to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Thank you for your service. Your men and women of honor. Yeah. Now, you have done an amazing job at protecting the Constitution against the foreign enemies. Now, you don't have to raise your hands and you don't have to answer out loud. What kind of job do you think you've done against defending against domestic enemies? How thorough have you been there? Okay, now, every member of the Liberty Restoration Committee, the LRC, holds our Constitution as a divinely inspired document just like you do. But change has got to come, everybody. It's got to come. I want you to picture something. Number one, let me see if you agree with me here. I am absolutely proud to be an American, but I am disgusted by and ashamed of our government. Okay? There we go. All right, the second document, to shock you now, is entitled The People's Constitution for America. Do not knee-jerk react to this until you hear me out. A lot of people knee-jerk and say, oh, this guy's talking about touching the Constitution. Picture a big button. It's red, white, and blue. It's got the word liberty written right across it. Okay? When you push this button, here are some of the things that happen. All federal elected and appointed officials are removed from office. Okay? That's just the first thing. Yeah, you can clap for that. Yeah. All right? All federal laws, good, bad, or otherwise, rendered null and void. All Supreme Court decisions, good, bad, or otherwise, null and void. All treaties, trade agreements, these type of things, certain ones honored, etc. We go into detail on the website with this. Okay, now, to find all of those things, and to find this out, I'm going to explain to you why supporting the plan and the action of the LRC is the ultimate defense of the Constitution against those domestic enemies that we've elected that have shred the documents. Not quite ready for it, John, almost. I know I said the key word, the plan, but not yet. Thank you. So I want to explain something to you. All these documents, even this presentation, probably much better than I'm handling it, can be found at thelibertypledge.com. And that word THE is really important, or it'll take you to the wrong spot. The Liberty Pledge, like the Statue of Liberty and the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay? Thelibertypledge.com. There it is. Thank you, sir. Right there at the very bottom. So, I suggest the first thing you look at after you read the plan, I'll show the plan yet again, sorry about that. But eventually, you need to look at the People's Constitution for America. The committee made it very easy for you because we put it color-coded. That's to just let some of you know, I don't mean this as an insult, know exactly what had been changed, or added, or what had been left out. Because there are some things that were left out, like maybe that 16th Amendment I was talking about. Okay, so take the time, because 90% of the content is in black text. That's language straight from our existing document. Okay? Now, let me tell you how it's the same, but how it's different. That's how it's the same. There's 10% of the document in bright blue text. That's language that was either changed or added. Now, I don't want to get real wonky in here, but I do want to hit some high points. Things that didn't make the cut. the 18th Amendment that created prohibition, the 21st Amendment that repealed it. That'll always be a part of our history, but you have to think about this new document as a fresh, whole document with no amendments hanging off of it. That's why Article 1, Sections 1 through 12, you'll look at it and say, oh, look there, our Bill of Rights are right up front, where they need to be. The most important thing in the document, the rights of the people, the rights of the states first. So you won't find the 18th or 21st. You also won't find the 16th or the 17th. You say, oh, the 17th. We already know about the 16th and what it did. It opened the door for the federal government to reach through the layer of protection of state governments, stick their hands in our pockets, but also it gave them the ability to turn their focus from outward to inward and start regulating the states and the people directly. Never part of their discretion. That gave them the power to do so. So the committee tossed the 16th Amendment. We don't want it. We don't need it. Now the 17th Amendment was removed to return the senators to their original intent of being selected by state legislative bodies to represent the interests of the states. It also means these guys won't be running for office and they won't get campaign contributions. You know, the bribes and payoffs, which is what they are. It also takes in this document and lowers the number of how big a congressional district is. It lowers it to 250,000. Now originally it was 30,000, but a couple of years ago, the House and Senate, without a constitutional amendment, decided to limit the number of representatives we could have, and then they passed them out like candy. There are some districts where they are representing 2.5 to 4 million people, and there's some states that only have 1 representative but 2 senators. So, you know, things aren't even. There's not equal representation at all. So we lowered it down to 250,000 people. This jumped the number of the members of Congress all the way up to between 12 and 1,500. You're saying, good Lord, nothing will ever get done. But your representatives are going to be a lot closer to you. This is going to open up all sorts of possibilities for the citizen person to go serve in Congress. And their offices are going to be right in their districts. Let me tell you some other things too. And I can explain this without the paper. Good Lord knows I've done this enough. So, we've got term limit language in there. Okay? It's the only way you're going to keep them under control. Maximum 8 years term in either house. They will not be paid by the federal budget anymore. Their money, they're going to be paid by their employers, the states they represent. Okay? And there is balanced budget language as well. Let's be prepared in advance. You'll like this one maybe. All new bills proposed to become law, remember we're going to nullify all the old ones. All new bills proposed to become law must be single issue in content in plain English. You're not going to be able to hide something in thousands of pages that we have to pass in order to read it. Okay? So these things are done to restrict Congress and keep them inside the box the founders created for them. Now we move to the Supreme Court. We're getting rid of all those guys too. But now all federal judges all the way up to the Supreme Court will be elected, not appointed. And they don't get lifetime terms. They actually don't have them now, but nobody understands that. They will be on 6-year terms, maximum of 12 years service, and we've got it staged at a point where every 2 years, 1/3 of the justices either term out or re-elected or term out. So it's impossible to stack the court leaning either right or left for longer than 2 years, maximum 4 years. We also limit what they can rule on too. They can't make things up as they go. They can't legislate from the bench. You need to check this document out. It's nothing to be afraid of, nothing to fear, and unlike a convention of states, everything is there for you to see. And until the ratification process actually starts, we can take your input. We're not locked into stone, but I think you're going to find this was very carefully thought out and very thorough in its composition. Again, I will be able to answer your questions. Trust me, it will not be the first time that I've heard What has happened, everybody, is that America prospered. We got lazy in our prosperity. We trusted without verifying what our representatives were up to. And these guys were very sneaky about figuring out ways to circumvent our opinions, but still get our votes. Tell me, does this math work for you? Congress has a 9 to 11% approval rating, but a 94% re-election rate? How is that even possible? But it happens, doesn't it? So, let's talk about the plan. Here's the third tool. The first tool, Declaration of Intent. Second tool, the People's Constitution for America. Now, John, I need it. There we go, the plan. And we can come up with any more original name for it than that, okay? So, it will require you to demand from your state legislative bodies to dissolve the current compact they have by ratifying the People's Constitution for America. Now, here's what we ask you to do to support the LRC. I'm going to backtrack just a second before I tell you that. Your second column action is to read the People's Constitution. If you're convinced that it's the right course of action, we want you to share this information with people. But the biggest surprise to me with this movement is being opposed by some of the very people that should be first in line supporting it. What I mean by that people knee-jerk react and say, oh no, you can't touch it. We don't want anybody messing with it. How's it working for us right now? How are we ever going to cut the federal government back down to the size it needs without drastic, bold action? We can try and run them out of office. How well is that working for us? It's not working at all. So read that. Here's my challenge to you. I want you to look at this document. You find a single word, a single phrase, a single sentence, a single paragraph that damages the rights or the liberty of the people or the sovereignty of the states. I challenge you to try and find that. You won't. It's not in there. What you will find is serious restrictions on the power, the reach, the scope of the federal government, and what very well could be the last peaceful solution there is to stopping our out-of-control self-destruction from within that Abraham Lincoln tried to warn us about. Nobody can invade and conquer us, but from within we will rot. So, now we go to the plan. Several things, if you'll advance to the next slide, please, John. Okay, here's what we need you to do. We want you to pray. We want you to pray for the wisdom, the guidance, and the success of this project. Advance again, John. Then we want you to share the post from the website, from the Facebook pages, and I'll let you know what they are later on. We want you to share, but you got to share every day. Go look for new content, new videos. We've got a lot going on at this website. One more time, please. Hound. Actually, the script says contact. But you know, contacting your state representatives at the state level, your congressmen and senators, email them one time or call them one time, it's not going to get the job done. You know that, I know that. So you're going to have to hound these guys. And you're going to have to encourage other people to hound them as well. But you need to share this information with everybody you know, even strangers you come in contact with. We've got some individual efforts going on right now where people have printed business cards with the website address and the Facebook pages on them. They give them out to people in line at Walmart and gas stations. Different things are going on. We have a lady, 68 years old. They gave her 3 years to live 10 years ago. She's dragging an oxygen tank behind her. She's in such bad shape. She got her granddaughter to print out all these documents and made a folder for each and every member of the Florida state legislative bodies. Then dragging her oxygen tank, went to each office and demanded to hand it right to the representative. She got her way too. I don't expect all that, but I expect, or if you're going to support this, we need you to do these things. Advance to the next, please. Celebrate each state that ratifies this. Starting June 20th, I'll launch a tour of Kansas because they asked me to. 125 town hall meetings, in 105 counties. That's going to take me the last 2 weeks of June, all of July, and a good bit of August. These folks have me doing presentations like this 3 and 4 times a day. Kansas wants to be the first state. I challenge Texas to try and beat them. Okay? So, next please. Stay focused. There are 38 states that have to ratify this document. To reverse that, 13 states saying no, we're done. Next. Okay? Don't quit. Don't quit. If your state ratifies, start helping out the folks in Oklahoma, Louisiana, whoever, and start helping them out. Start contacting them. Say, look, we did this in Texas. When you guys going to get busy and get it done there? To rebuild an engine, some of you guys know what you have to do is you got to tear it down all the way to the block. To remodel a house, replacing all the plumbing and wiring, you got to gut it. But you want to keep what's intact and what's good. I'm not anti-Constitution. I'm not anti-federal government. I'm anti the thieving, lying, pocket lining their own pocket bunch that we've got up there. I'm very anti that. I believe all of y'all are too. So, what we've got to do is we've got to come together. This isn't a Democrat thing. It's not a Republican thing, libertarian thing. I don't care. I don't care about the color of your skin. I don't care about your, I don't believe in hyphens. I believe we're all Americans, okay? Those of us that believe. And there are things that have to get done and things that have to be brought under control. We've allowed D.C. to intrude and regulate every aspect of our lives. Yes, this action is bold. Some of you might even call it radical. But if we're to stop our rotting from within, we've got to cut out the source. Amen. So it's past time to completely clean house in Washington, for our nation to thrive, to have our rights and property respected, and restore state sovereignty. I believe in the exceptionalism of Americans, because united, there is nothing we can't accomplish, and together we can restore our constitutional republic to its original intent, because how did I start? The power of the people is greater than the people in power. Thank you for your time and your attention. I don't know how much time we have. Do we have time for any questions? Or?
Yeah, let's,
Okay.
good? Yeah, we got about, what do you think about 10 minutes for the question?
Okay.
Whoa,
Yeah. That's
Ma'am.
going to be somebody else.
we're set
Wasn't
up
me.
for right here so we can broadcast.
Bill, if you would step up to the mic up here, because we are, we're recording this for posterity. And if you've got a question, come on up here to the mic, the orange mic, and we'll be glad to take your question. And then in about 10 minutes or so, Michael Conley is going to talk to us from the United States Justice Foundation. Bill?
My question and concern is what's going to happen when our esteemed president declares martial law and declares us all out of order and puts us in FEMA camps, or tries to.
Well, sir, I understand your concern. We all put ourselves at risk when we stand up. We do that. I know I've been on the domestic terrorist watch list since 2013. Guess I should have warned you about that, right? Yeah, right. So I understand what you're saying. Martial law, sir, ratifying this document is the cure for it. I don't believe the federal government has the resources or the manpower or anything necessary to, or the, pardon me, I know I'm in church, the cojones to try and shut down 50 state legislative bodies and tell them they can't do this. I understand what you're saying about martial law, sir. Again, look at how this nation is. That's part of the problem about organizing. We're so dead spread out. But it might surprise all of you to know when I drive this country, only about 32 to 3,500 miles a week. This country is only about 5% developed on the landmass. So we're spread out. We are spread out. I don't believe the federal government has the resources to be able to enforce. Now, in certain areas, yeah, they'll clamp down on martial law. The FEMA camps, I'm not saying one way or the other whether or not they exist, but I do know this, sir, that I don't believe any attempt like that can be 100% successful. Do I expect to be rounded up in the first bunch? I'm surprised I haven't been arrested already, if you want to know the truth. Okay, so did that answer your question, sir? I don't know if it did or not. All right, next question.
Suzanne?
Hi, you said that you'd had other people look at this. Has Ted Cruz looked at this plan?
I can't say for sure one way or the other. This plan, by the way, everybody, was only launched a month ago yesterday. It's only been out 30 days. We tried to do it a little quicker than that, but this wasn't the kind of thing that you wanted to rush. So, I don't know whether Ted Cruz has seen it or not. I know that, I know we've been contacted by the Trump campaign, but we haven't gone any distance with that. Yes, ma'am.
Well, my concern is there's been a Tea Party, there's been a Constitutional Party, there's been a lot of organizations across this country that have, raised up and then kind of fizzled. And there are people here that would fall in the category of, yes, we hear what you're saying, we think it's a good idea, but you've got to, the harvest is great, the workers are few. And what you're saying is it takes commitment. I mean, I do write letters to the editor. I've only lived here a year. And I've been writing letters to the editor about a variety of things. And that's fine. But if the people here don't actually take it and put boots to the ground and do what they're supposed to be, then they're part of the complacency, the problem we have. So I don't know whether a website has this to be able to nail people to a wall and get them to do stuff. Every person in this room.
Well, ma'am, here's the problem. We couldn't call ourselves the Liberty Restoration Committee without giving you the liberty of your freedom of choice. Can't anybody make you do a single thing that I talked about? You can leave here saying, well, that old bald fat truck driver up there, man, he was really worked up about this, wasn't he? But if you do nothing, then you've done nothing. Nothing will change. Anybody realize that eagles can live to be 70 years old? And I'll get into that in just a minute, because at age 40, they have to go through a whole lot of pain. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I sense your frustration. We all have that.
Yes, sir.
As we get more and more frustrated, we can get more and more desperate.
I understand.
My range of possibilities for the solution go everywhere from secession of Texas
Right.
to a catastrophic event that kills 99% of the people on the earth. I mean, there's a range of possibilities here.
Certainly.
Yours sounds very much like an ad hoc constitutional convention, okay? Now that is in kind of, I won't say opposition, but it is conflicting with the Article 5 convention activity that has got a big jump on it. They've got 8 states approved, okay?
Well, they've got 8 states that have asked for it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Finish your question, and then there's a reason why.
Okay, fine.
Because Ernest actually was the national spokesperson for the Convention of States.
Okay, well, I'm very interested in the Convention of States activity.
And there's a reason why he has shifted from that, and it has to do with a Supreme Court review of a congressional request regarding Convention of States. The Supreme Court has preliminarily ruled that Congress can nullify any attempt by the states to create a state convention.
I've heard that. Too.
Well,
So I'm aware, but it seems like the same argument could be applied to your activity. Okay? I mean, if you've got an illegitimate form of government that's going to quench every activity, everybody's in the same pot.
Sure.
So the point I'm making is, with all these activities,
Right.
there's a dilution of focus, there's a dilution of effort, you get tired. I mean, you can write maybe 50 letters on this, but if you got to write 50 letters on 5 things, that's 250 letters. I mean,
Right.
can't we just choose a way and focus? And maybe it's We don't go for the big kahuna here at the start, but, Convention of States, Article 5 has some advantages to getting us to your solution. And that's my question is,
Well, sir.
are we in conflict to
Okay.
places?
If I can address that, as Greg was pointing out, 2013, 2014, I was the national grassroots ambassador for the Convention of States project until I learned several truths about it. Anybody here follow Chris Ann Hall? Chris Ann Hall has an excellent three-part series on nullification versus a COS. Now, the COS project, like Greg said, it's been corrupted and compromised, just like our Constitution has been, because the Supreme Court has already told Congress, yeah, you can set all the terms and conditions and everything else for this, and they completely corrupted the original intent of Article 5, which it was to be able to take place in spite of the federal government, not with the federal government's control. So they have published this in a Congressional Research Service report, and Congress is basically the bottom line, sir. Congress has made sure that nobody but Congress will be able to have anything to do with an amendment process. And you can verify this, don't take my word for it. The information is there for everyone to see. I took this information to Dr. Michael Ferris and Mark Meckler, the head of the COS project, and I said, don't you think it's time to tell the people? No. No. Well, the first thing they're going to have to do is when they get 34 states in this line of 8 states, we're a lot closer to a dozen states. So I understand what you're saying, but the best way I can answer your question, sir, is please take the time to look at and study. We are open. I'm not going to put any other effort down, but I will tell you what I know about the limitations of the COS project. I understand its appeal, but I also know now where the funding comes from and what its true purpose is to keep people that are intelligent enough to want to do this process extremely busy on something that will not work. It will not be allowed to happen. 2030 is their timeline just to call the convention. We don't have that much time. That's why I've changed gears. Yes, sir.
There's no doubt that the natives are restless.
Yes, sir.
The fight we're in is not a linear one. There are many different ways we can continue the fight. Appears to be one of them. I've read through the material, haven't studied it in depth. I like what I read. A couple of questions for you. Number one, who makes up the LRC? Second question is, why would a legislature eliminate themselves? And the final one is, how do you get from old to new without some kind of transition step?
Well, there is going to have to be a transition, sir. We by no means feel like that this will solve all of our problems. As a matter of fact, it will create its own set of very unique problems. And thank you for the question, sir. Thank everyone for your questions. In the process of this, I understand what you're saying, and no one at the federal level is going to want to give up their office, their power. They've spent decades building those playhouses up there for themselves. They're not going to go willingly, but there are a number of people. In the recruiting process, there were lots of militia members, 3%ers, and everything else. And as they were being recruited over the phone by myself or other recruiters, you could almost hear the guys safety their weapons, put them down on the table and say, okay, this is the missing piece of the puzzle. We get this done. Now, if they won't leave after it's ratified, then call us, we'll go take care of that problem, right? But I think most of them, as it approaches ratification, I think they'll start running for the hills. Because you remove them from office and remove their power, they're going to be wide open to be responsible for how they acted while they were in office without your buddies there to cover them. That's something I think not necessarily the committee's position. People with the wisdom and knowledge of a Judge Andrew Napolitano, of a Chris Ann Hall, of a Mark Levin, there were all of people in that very category that make up the LRC and people that think along the same lines. There were dozens from various spots on the map. It was never shared electronically until it was published on this website. It was actually sent around the country by FedEx. I should have bought stock because I helped pay for some of those transfers. All right, we've got no more questions. Thank you all very much. I will hang around and answer more questions later. And I'm just proud to be here in Kerrville, Texas, and finally get to meet face to face this guy here. He's actually shorter than I thought he was.